A mother demands that their kid becomes a stripper. Our first Reddit post from a K-chef. Ever since I became pregnant, I've become a magnet for entitled parents. I have no idea what it is. Maybe they can just smell the pregnancy hormones and it brings out that sense of entitlement. I had no idea this happened to me while I was about 3 months along. I was at a grocery store picking up a few things. I was tired, sick from morning sickness and desperate to find something to eat that I could keep down. So I didn't have many purchases while standing in line, waiting to be checked out. And from behind me enters the entitled mother. She had a child, but he didn't say anything that I remember. I was still waiting to put my purchases on the counter while the other person was checking out. I heard the entitled mother come up behind me and clear her throat. Excuse me. I turned, and this woman didn't really look like the typical Karen. She actually looked more like those bottle blonde sorority girls with tons of makeup on. She had an adorable little boy in her cart, I guess maybe 3 years old. And she was obviously pregnant, I guess between 6 or 7 months. Yes, I'm tired. And not going to lie was kind of rude when I said it. I'm very tired and want to get home. Can you just let me in front of you? The woman literally had a cart full of groceries. I can be kind of a pushover. So if she only had a few things, I probably would have let her. I only have a couple of items. I'll be checked out pretty fast. Oh, come on. I'm pregnant and very tired. My feet are killing me and I need to get my son home. Well, I am pregnant and fighting morning sickness. I just want to get my soup and Tylenol so I can try and eat and sleep. She scarfed and looked at my stomach. You're not pregnant. Don't give me that BS, lady. I don't really care what you think. I turn back to face the cashier as she finally finishes owning the groceries of the guy in front of me. I could literally hear her scoffing and muttering under her breath as I was being checked out. She was still muttering under her breath and tapping her shoes impatiently. Some people are just so rude. I really wish I had turned and snapped at her again. But I was tired and sick. I tried to ignore her. Entitled mother literally began throwing stuff onto the counter the second there was space, still muttering about wanting to go home and how I was such a lying jerk. The cashier was looking at her and rolling her eyes at the entitled mother. As soon as I was checked out, literally took 5 minutes if that, I got my receipt and looked at the entitled mother. Sorry I took a whole 10 minutes away from you. Have a wonderful day. OAP, you know things. I'm not into stupid blondes. I was a little happy. I made the cashier laugh while I walked away. She yelled something else, but I ignored her. I still regret not having a better comeback than what I said, though not very exciting. But that was my first run-in with an entitled mother. Sadly, I have more stories, and I would love to finish this pregnancy with no more encounters of entitled parents or entitled people in general. Opus, you probably didn't think that what you did was that big of a deal, but trust me, you made that cashier's freaking week. If you think you dealing with entitled parents is annoying, imagine how hard it is for people in the service industry who have to deal with Karens every single day. I guarantee you that the first thing the cashier did on her break was go and tell every other cashier about what you said to that stuck-up entitled parent. Our next Reddit post is from Naps for Life. So I collect fountain pens, r/fountain pens if you're interested, or my post history for the pens in question, some of which are very beautiful, rare, and expensive. A significant amount of my collection is cheap, Chinese knockoff pens that I have for inking dozens or even hundreds of things at once. But I mostly keep them to give away to people who are interested in dipping their toes into the hobby. They're certainly not bad pens, but nothing like my nicer ones and not as extravagant looking. I used to work in an extended day camp over summers, and I'm still friends with the people I worked with there. Next to the classroom building is a park with a playground, which is technically a public park, but I've never seen anyone but people related to the school use it. At the end of the day, when parents are picking up their kids, we'd bring the kids to the playground to wait for their parents. Last week I went to pick up my friend who worked there and hung around with her at the playground because there was this one last little girl, 5 or so years old I think, whose mom was a bit late. She seemed really sweet and interested in my stuff, so I showed her my pin collection and she asked politely to try one. I was happy to show her how to use one of my cheap pens and she was very gentle and patient with it. So I told her that if her mom gave permission, she could pick out a chip to keep. Eventually, her mom showed up with another mom and another 5-ish-year-old girl. She immediately ran to her mom and started excitedly telling her about the pins, and her mom said she could have won. So she ran back and carefully picked one out while she was happily showing her mom. I heard the other mom telling her kid go ahead and pick one. The other little girl came up and immediately pointed at one of my admittedly very colorful and sparkly expensive pens and said, "I'd like this one please." She was never pushy during the whole incident, so I can't fault the child of the mom though. So I started explaining to her that this was my personal collection, and if I could show her how to use one of the chips and if she was nice to it, I would let her pick one of those. She seemed to understand and just said, "Okay." But her mom interrupted and said, "Excuse me, you let the other little girl pick whatever she wanted. You have to let mine choose." So I started to explain again that this is like a $1.60 pin, and she's angrily like, "No, that's the one she picked, so you have to give it to her." I'd like to say I had some kind of repartee with her where I showed her how dumb she is like some of you posed. But I was just dumbfounded and could only stare at her in shock for a second. My brain was like pins in danger, so I just zipped up my case, packed it in my bag, and started walking away to get my friend and go. This lady is getting upset and trying to stop me the whole time I'm walking away, but I didn't say another word to her as we left. I feel bad about our kid who really wasn't that bad, but no one needs a fountain pen except me. Obviously, our next Reddit post is from Thank God I'm Anonymous. Backstory: I have one brother and one sister. I'm male, I'm the oldest of the bunch. My brother is about 2 years younger and my sister is just about 1 year younger at the time of this story. We all have pretty good income, not toot my own horn, but I honestly had the best. My sister had the worst. She was consistently borrowing money from either me or my mom. She didn't waste it on things like drugs, but she just didn't have enough income and she had to pay a hefty amount of rent, so I knew my sister was looking for ways she could make more money. She was kind of desperate at this point. I was helping her out. She was intelligent enough for a better job. Then one day I found her a solid looking job and asked her if she wanted to go interview for it. She met all the requirements, but then she said no. I was pretty confused because why would you turn down something like that? But she didn't accept it and then she quit the job she already had. So now I knew something had to be up. I came over to her place and asked her. She tried to deny everything at first, but then she just let loose. She kind of just regretfully told me that she was trying out stripping. I was silent. I wasn't thinking about it, and honestly the thought that she might have done this had crossed my mind before. I didn't know whether to be mad or sympathetic. I decided to not be mad. She begged me not to tell our mom, so I didn't. I just told her to not do anything stupid, and then I kind of became her partner. I would drive her to places I shouldn't have been. I would make sure she got home all right, and I was the only one who knew what she did. I never really saw what she was doing, I just knew. Soon our mom found out. I could see it was through my sister, but I honestly forget how she found out. And my mom kind of freaked out. She called my sister all kinds of slutty slurs, calling her a failure, saying she would disown her. My sister was crying. It was bad. And then everything changed when sister told our mom about how much money she made. Although I don't like admitting it, it was more than what I made. Let's just say she made a lot, like a lot. My mother was dumbfounded. And then, wouldn't you guess, she became my mom's angel. She ignored all my sister did wrong and focused on the money she made instead. She would brag about her to relatives, saying she worked hard and deserved it. And the worst part, my mom never acted like I was a failure and that I should make as much money as my sister makes me. Remember why I was so eager to move out. Now let me just say my sister was incredibly supportive. She offered me a bunch of money. I declined most. I only accepted a bit for driving her in favors. Nothing for no reason. So let's get that out of the way now. I was mad at my mom. I wouldn't talk to her if I didn't have to. I was disappointed that she felt like that. It made me embarrassed. My mom constantly bugged me. I should make more money. I should get a job like my sister. I should do as well as my sister. It was bad. How do you be proud of that? So yeah, that's what happened. Now my brother was kind of ignored throughout this. She decided to focus on me, which sucks. But now a few months later, my sister quit that job. She found a better job. And she never had any bad accidents or things like drug addictions. Me and my sister remained friends throughout the whole thing. And now everyone just pretends to forget what happened. No, I don't blame her. Not really. She needed money, so she did what she did. Obviously, I don't encourage it, but she didn't spend her money on things like drugs and alcohol, so she kept her head level a bit. I blame my mom though. She was annoying as heck. Hey Opie, when you said and then I became her partner. That's not the best way to phrase that sentence. I think most of my viewers probably had Sweet Home Alabama playing in the back of their heads. Our next read, a poster from Arriva. Before I start, I'm from Germany and this story took place there. Please keep that in mind because A, our laws might be slightly different, and B, English isn't my first language, and if I misspell things or my grammar is wonky, that's why. So in the early 2010 seconds, I was trying on sneakers in a shoe store downtown with my purse lying next to me on the floor. I am both blind and deaf on my right side. brain surgery gone wrong, but I'm okay considering the circumstances. And so I didn't even really see the teenager who sneaks up, grabs my purse, and starts booking it out the store. If he hadn't started running, I probably wouldn't even have noticed that he'd taken my bag all without really thinking. I started after him, and since I was wearing new sneakers in the store, a store clerk runs after me. The kid makes it about 200 yards before I catch up with them. Now, I didn't try to tackle him, I just wanted to grab him and we lost our balance. The poor guy tries to catch our fall with me on top of him. He was maybe pound 150, I was maybe 185, and there was a sickening crunch. Popeye points out in a later update that this caused a wrist injury with a dislocation and fracture of the ulnar. I instantly feel horrible for the job and try to see what's wrong. I used to work as an EMT. The clerk from the shoe store is standing there staring at us, trying to figure out what just happened. The kid's clutching his arm and trying to act tough. He might even have tried to get back up and keep running. But there were too many people around us now and he changed his mind. I asked for an ambulance to be called, but it's the police who showed up first, called by the store and asked what happened. I explain. The store clerk explains, a few witnesses jump in. The police ask if I want to press charges, and I say something like, I think he's been punished enough. Fast forward about a month, in short succession, I get 2 letters. One is informing me that the police are looking into a battering charge against me. The second is a summons into court, and I can't believe my eyes. I'm being sued by the purse snatcher for damages for pain and suffering. They wanted something around 8,000 euros for the broken wrist. Luckily, I have an awesome lawyer who is also my cousin, and we appear in court at the appointed time. While we wait for the case to be called, the kid sits on a bench, his arm in a brace, looking a bit sheepish next to his lawyer, a young guy and henceforth lawyer. One stands his mother glaring daggers at me. We get called inside, and lawyer 1 starts to elaborate in great detail how I threw myself on top of the kid while he was on the ground, and so caused his injury, which in turn took surgery to fix. It's hard for me to keep quiet, but I bite the inside of my cheek and hold my tongue. Once his lawyer is done, my cousin gets up and the first thing she does is inform the judge that the injury was caused during a crime, explaining about the purse snatching. The judge pauses, looks at lawyer 1 and asks if he was aware of this. He says yes, but that it shouldn't matter, because in their view, I caused the injury deliberately and therefore the circumstances shouldn't matter as long as I wasn't defending my health. I had no right to injure a child. The judge has 2 questions. Were there any witnesses and why were there no charges filed against the thief? My cousin produces statements from witnesses, the first police report of the incident, and the documentation about the suspended investigation about whether or not I should be charged for battering. She also informs the judge that the police had followed my wish in not filing charges for the theft and explains that I felt the kid had suffered enough due to his injury. This is where entitled mother makes her first big mistake. She interrupts my cousin before she can finish and says something like how, obviously she was afraid you'd get in trouble for what she did to my poor child, and the police did not do their job properly. Lawyer 1 tries to usher and apologizes to the judge, saying his client is clearly in emotional distress over her child's injury. Her poor child, he was 17. Meanwhile, sits in his chair behind lawyer 1 an entitled mom and looks like he's trying to disappear into the floor. The judge, in an unusual move for a German court, asks the kid directly if he thinks I injured him on purpose. He sort of shrugs, and right there entitled mom makes mistake number 2. That fat cow threw herself onto my poor child when he was lying in the street. She should be locked up now in Germany. You can't just say rude things like fat cow to someone, even if they're true. At least the fat part, lol. Especially not in court. My cousin turns around to me and silently mouths, wow. There's even a murmur of reaction from the 3 or so people sitting in the back of the court. Many court proceedings are open to the public in Germany. The judge looks at entitled mom, who is again being shushed by a lawyer, 1 not quite as gently this time, and whose stage whispers it's true. When all is quiet again, judge waits a few more seconds, just glaring at entitled mom teacher style. Then the judge looks at lawyer 1 and asks, do you want to proceed with this nonsense? Before lawyer 1 can say no, it would have made the court cost cheaper, I think. Entitled mom says, yes. Judge nods, declares the case dismissed, orders all costs court and both lawyers to be paid by the claimant, and then turns to me and asks if I want to file charges for libel. My cousin nods enthusiastically, so I say yes. The judge announces she'd speed things up and asks lawyer 1 if he'll be representing entitled mom. He nods. Entitled mom seems to have lost the plot and keeps asking him what's going on before lawyer 1 can even explain to her what's about to happen. The judge makes it official and awards the euro 150 in damages and again decides that all costs and lawyer costs should be carried by entitled mom. My favorite thing about this, my lawyer is my cousin and she wouldn't have charged me more than absolutely necessary. But she's also working in a prestigious law firm with 4 partners who rake up a combined 6 PhDs, and which is not cheap. I don't remember the exact amount entitled mom ended up getting billed with, but it was a good chunk. This might just be the dumbest entitled parent I've ever read about on this website. Her kid breaks the law and she tries to sue the person who was the victim in the crime and then argues with the judge and commits crimes in the courtroom because apparently in Germany, calling people's names is considered libel. That's kind of crazy. But that's not nearly as crazy as this moronic entitled mother. That was our /entitled parents. Thanks for watching.